Welcome to Ingrid's World. On this show, you will meet Lieutenant General Stayce D. Harris, who retired in March 2019 as Inspector General of the Air Force, Office of the Secretary of the Air Force, Washington, D.C. In this capacity, the General reported to the Secretary and Chief of Staff of the Air Force on all matters concerning Air Force effectiveness and efficiency and military discipline of active duty, Air Force Reserve, as well as Air Force National Guard forces. General Harris received commission in the Air Force through the University of Southern California ROTC program, graduating with a Bachelor of Science degree in Industrial and Systems Engineering and a Master's degree from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. General Harris has commanded Air Force Lift Squadron, Air Fueling Wing, and a numbered Air Force. She is also a pilot with United Airlines, most recently flying a Boeing 747-400 aircraft. Well, I hope you're just as excited as I am to welcome to the show General Harris.
Great. Thank you so much, Ingrid, for inviting me.
Well, you are here, and I just want to, first of all, great to have you here at Public Access, but I really want to find out, where are you from?
Great question. So it's not a simple answer.
Oh, I love it.
So I was born in Los Angeles, California. My father was in the Air Force, so I'm what we call an Air Force brat.
Oh, my goodness.
So we traveled around the world, moving about every couple of years, until I went to college at Southern Cal. That's when I determined that I would be a person from Los Angeles, California. My parents, though, are both from North Carolina.
I kind of saw a little bit of a, oh, how wonderful. My question has always been, how did you start your career?
Well, just like I said, my dad was in the Air Force, and I wanted to be just like my dad. And I wanted to be like my dad because every 2 years we moved to what I thought was a new and exciting location around the world. And I tell people, I wasn't sure quite what my dad did, but whatever it had us traveling every 2 years is what I wanted to do. And then it wasn't until I enrolled in junior ROTC in high school that I learned what it meant to be an airman, to be a good citizen. And I realized that I did want to be part of something greater than myself, and I wanted to serve the nation in the Air Force.
Oh my goodness. So is that how you started your career in the Air Force, in high school?
Well, high school for junior ROTC, and then college. And then after college is when I came into the Air Force. So in high school, I had applied for a 4-year scholarship, an engineering scholarship, because that was one area where the Air Force was looking for airmen to serve. And so I competed for that scholarship, and I found out my freshman year that I was awarded that scholarship.
Oh my goodness.
So schooling was paid for. And then I was going to be an engineer. Also, that first year, my freshman year, one of my college instructors, my ROTC instructor, said, "Hey, what do you think about flying?" And I go, "I've been flying all my life. I've been flying since I was the age of 2 with my father." And he goes, "No, what do you think about flying as a pilot?" And I had not thought about that.
You had not thought about that?
I had not. You know, I knew about Bessie Coleman, and I knew about Amelia Earhart, and women were just starting to fly commercially. So this was in the mid-'70s. But then I thought, wow, why not fly? Why be a passenger when I can have the best window seat in the plane?
Oh my goodness, this gives me chills. Well, tell us about your experience in the Air Force.
So the experience was really wonderful. So I still started off as an engineer. So my first assignment was at Hill Air Force Base, Utah. And I had told my instructor that I wanted to fly. So just back up a little bit. I had the pilot training scholarship. So I applied for a pilot training scholarship in college, and I was awarded it. So engineer, still going to be a pilot. And then my senior year of high school, on that initial exam, my eyes did not pass the commissioning physical. So, and I was pretty devastated, because even though the dream of me wanting to fly was relatively new, it was only 4 years, where for a lot of people they've wanted to fly all their lives. All of a sudden I knew this is still what I wanted to do. So I was told that I could come on active duty, of course I would, as an engineer, and that I was welcome to reapply for pilot training again. So I came on active duty as an engineer at Utah, and had the most incredible experience. And I welcomed that experience because it allowed me to see the mission support side of the Air Force that could appreciate the operational side that flew. And I told my boss, my civil engineering boss, I said, I will do the very best job I can for you if you will support me going to pilot training. And he says, if you do your part, so will I. And so I worked very, very hard. We built a log cabin recreational facility at Hill Air Force Base that still stands to this day.
Oh my goodness.
Which is one of the beauties of being an engineer. You see the tangible results of what you do.
Yes.
And then I reapplied for pilot training again, was accepted for pilot training again, and then I was on my path. But I tell people, God's delays are not his denials.
Okay, say this again.
God's delays are not his denials.
I love it.
And I got that from Robin Roberts of Good Morning America when I heard her speak. Because that delay in me going to pilot training allowed me the opportunity to meet the Tuskegee Airmen.
Now, let's pause for a moment because I have attended your various, your promotion ceremonies and retirement. I saw the Tuskegee Airmen. In fact, we're showing it right now.
Yes, my heroes. So the way it happened is that, now you're on active duty and you're making new friends. And one of my active duty friends said, hey, Stacey, you're getting ready to go to pilot training now. Have you ever met the Tuskegee Airmen? And I go, no, you can meet the Tuskegee Airmen. I tell people it's like someone saying, hey, do you want to meet Denzel Washington? Go to the Academy Awards.
Yes.
But they had an annual conference. And their annual conference was always in August. And I was going to pilot training in November. And they said, you should go to that conference for inspiration. So I remember in 1983, it was at the World Trade Center. And the elevator is ascending to what was probably the 74th floor.
Oh my goodness.
And the elevators open up, and there are all my heroes and sheroes, the Tuskegee Airmen, that were all part of that experience. It wasn't just pilots, but there were maintainers, there were navigators, there were mission support, there were medical personnel, and they're all there for their annual reunion. And I told them, I said, thank you for paving the way for someone who looks like me to be able to go to pilot training. And of course, they were so pleased. Those of us that were younger wanted to follow in their footsteps. So as you know, because you've attended, I've dedicated my entire career to
You
the
really
Tuskegee
have,
Airmen.
and I think that's what's really so exciting, because then to see them, your number of different firsts, my goodness, and then seeing them who paved it is amazing. You've had a lot of, so you're a pilot. What about the different skills that you have? Because you just are kind of pretty amazing, so.
Well, a number of skill sets. So, I tell people I'm an engineer by degree. I'm a pilot by profession. And after 37 and a half years, I became a senior leader of our Air Force. So I'd had a number, just blessed and grateful to have a number of command responsibilities where I could lead, manage, and resource airmen, because I really see myself as a servant leader and wanting to take care of the airmen.
What has been the position that has just given you the greatest satisfaction?
Great question. So I would say every command. So every command has just been, they're just like your baby. So even though I don't have children myself, I feel like a lot of my airmen have been my children over the years. So even squadron command, which is basically a few hundred people, to group command, which is about 1,000 people, to wing command, which is much more than that, and then numbered Air Force, which I had 15,000 airmen to lead, manage, and resource. All of those have really been my favorites.
So, for you to climb that up, did you face any challenges as you made your way through this?
I tell people the challenges really happened early in my career. So the challenge initially of me thinking I was going to pilot training and then not going to pilot training and then persevering to reapply. I would tell people persistence truly is my hallmark. And then when I think about challenges later, it's really been, like I said, a really blessed career. But the challenges have been, how can I best take care of my airmen? So for instance, in my last command that I had, which was 22nd Air Force out of Dobbins Air Reserve Base in Georgia, 15,000 airmen, and we were flying a legacy aircraft called the C-130. And so it is a 4-engine propeller plane that is about my age or a little bit more.
My.
But, you know, as airplanes age, you know, we start thinking about either removing them from the inventory or modernizing them. And so I was very passionate about those aircraft specifically because people are used to seeing Air Force airplanes deployed defending the nation.
Yes.
And our C-130s were taking care of the nation. We were doing firefighting and hurricane hunting and aerial spray, you know, in our nation. And so I said, we must keep these aircraft. And until we replace them with something more modern, then we have to modernize them. And so those were the challenges of advocating for our airmen to be able to accomplish that mission, which basically took care of the homeland.
Oh, you know, and that's what it's all about, going back to that. So you talk about the challenge. What has been the key to your success? Because you're extremely successful. You know, I read that, and you know, I hope our viewers will even take a look at Wikipedia, because I did, and just so insightful, lots of things. But what has been the key to your success?
Me personally, I think it's having a passion and finding out what that passion is and being willing to adapt and be flexible. So once again, I didn't go to pilot training right off the bat. I became an engineer. Loved the work that I was doing as an engineer, was actually able to use the education. So finding that passion, being adaptable and flexible, but absolutely being persistent. I tell people I'm almost like a little puppy with a chew toy. I just do not let it go. And it doesn't mean that everything will go exactly the way you want, but at least you know you're driven towards that goal. And then to be sure to communicate what your passions are to others. Because when I share that with you, you may go, you know what, I know someone who's an engineer. I know someone who's a pilot. I have a good book that you can read. So the more that you share what your passions are, the more others around you can help you with it. And you develop that environment, a community that helps you follow your passion and your goal.
In terms of mentoring, did you have a mentor, or how did that apply?
Sure. So had mentors, absolutely, in the Air Force. And a lot of times you're not quite sure who your mentors are, because sometimes it's just a matter of a phone call with someone just going, hey, how you doing? And you get to bounce stuff off of them, you know. A lot of times you feel like you're doing it all yourself, but there's others that are looking out for you along the way, you know. I believe the Air Force has a very fair promotion system for upward mobility, and so obviously those promotion boards said, you know, we would like Stayce to be promoted and placed in areas of more responsibility. I've had phenomenal mentors, though, to tell you. So I remember my first squadron commander that really made a big impact on me, and this is when I was flying the C-141 cargo transport aircraft out of California. Wow. And his name was, at the time, Colonel Stephen Roser. And I just thought he was a phenomenal leader, mainly because he was present in the squadron. He was very compassionate about the airmen wanting to know what they needed. He eventually made me his executive officer, so now I got, you know, a peek behind the tent on how leadership runs and how the squadron ran at a much higher level. I remember a time when I had always talked about being an astronaut, but you know, you can talk. But I know I didn't have the technical degree, not the real pure scientific degree of engineering that would have made me competitive. But I remember talking about it and saying, you know, if I were to become an astronaut, I would have to go to test pilot school first, and the applications are due in a week or so, or whatever the time frame was. And I remember being on a trip, because the C-141 aircraft was basically the airlines of the military. So I'm in Japan, and all of a sudden my phone is ringing. I'm thinking, why would my phone be ringing in my hotel room? And it was my commander, it was Colonel Roser. And he says, I thought you said you wanted to go to test pilot school. And I go, well, I did. And he goes, and isn't your application due shortly? And I was like, yeah, it is, but I was just talking, you know? And he goes, hey, if you want to do it, you know, I'm here to support you with that. And I thought, that's the kind of leader I want to be. Just because he was listening. Yeah.
He was listening.
He was listening. And I thought, that's the type of leader I want to be. That's a servant leader, someone who actually cares for you, is listening, and wants the best for your airmen.
And he acted on it. He says, oh, let me go. Wow.
So I was very careful what I said deliberately about what I wanted in the future and what my goals were.
So, you know, you talk about that, but you had your philosophy. You said it's like a chew dog. What other philosophy kind of like overrides?
Just really, I think my philosophies have come from my mentors. Like you said, I've had General Mitchell and General Johnson, who were both African American generals in the reserve, along with General McNeil, who was actually at the lunch counter in Greensboro.
No.
That's then during the protests.
Oh my goodness.
And so when you have these leaders that are out there, you know, you look to the qualities they have. I've had a female mentor who was the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force, Ruby DeMesme. That was the first time I had had a female boss. Wow. Once again, very passionate, very philosophical, very thoughtful and deliberate about how she took the position and wanted to help others. And that became part of my philosophy also, you know, as far as how I want to behave and interact with others.
So, I mean, that's like pretty exciting from this. So I'm thinking that there's going to be people who are going to be out there and saying, you know, I really love what General Harris, you know, where she is and what she's doing. What would be some of the steps that they would be following?
Sure. So if they wanted to, let's for say, be a pilot, and they wanted to be a pilot in the Air Force, okay? So what we require is that, of course, you get your high school education, your college education. It doesn't necessarily have to be a technical degree, but it certainly helps because a lot of flying is technical, and you're doing a lot of calculations about climbing and descending, and what if you have to divert, and do you have enough fuel to get there, and you know the facilities there. So a technical degree helps. Once again, it's not you know, required. Doing very well on the Air Force Officers Qualifying Test. We call it the AFOQT. So it's like the SAT or the ACT, but with a flying portion. So what does that mean? That means that you would study ground school books. You would study as much about aviation at a basic level that you could, so that you could do well on that test. So combined with your college degree and your Air Force Officer Qualifying Test and being healthy to be able to serve as an airman, then you could apply for pilot training.
Wow.
And then that person would not have to follow in my footsteps. They would chart a path of their own.
They chart a path of their own. A lot of preparation.
A lot of preparation.
A lot of preparation. Did you ever imagine yourself being at this place?
I did not. I did not. I knew I wanted to make the Air Force a career because my dad had, and I knew that there was goodness in that. But I never imagined that my career would be where it is today and that I would retire as a Lieutenant General of the Air Force. I'm very honored that senior leadership of the Air Force and the Air Force Reserve had faith in me to promote me to this level.
We're showing one of the pictures of you as a painting. What does that painting, you're in the painting and then you are reaching out to, it looks like a Tuskegee Airman. Tell us about that painting that we're looking at.
Absolutely. So the Air Force, there is an artist for the Air Force called Chris Hopkins. And he has done a lot of portraits of the Tuskegee Airmen over the years. And they introduced me to him, and he said, I would like to do a portrait of you. And so we sat down and talked about what the vision of that portrait would be. And he says, you know, I've read about you, and he says, and so tell me what your passion is, and I'll tell you if I think it's the same thing. And I said, it's all about the Tuskegee Airmen. And he said, absolutely. So the vision is that I'd be reaching out my hand to the spirit of a Tuskegee Airman.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm doing. And it really is the passing of the baton. So coincidentally, when you look at that picture, it is a picture of Colonel Lee Archer, who was one of our famed Tuskegee Airmen. And Colonel Lee Archer actually pinned me to Colonel.
No.
But Chris Hopkins did not know that. So when I saw the picture, it just brought tears to my eyes.
So he actually pinned you becoming a colonel?
Exactly, yeah. So
and he had no idea?
He had no idea when he was drawing that portrait, yeah.
Where will this portrait hang?
It will hang in the Pentagon. So I'm very
goodness.
honored that it will hang in the Pentagon.
It
yes.
will be in the Pentagon.
Yeah, you know, in the Air Force, as we were celebrating our 70th anniversary just a few years ago, you know, we were breaking barriers. You know, that was our tagline, and so this portrait will show how we're breaking barriers, whether it be gender or, you know, race or, you know, technology, whatever we're doing. The Air Force is always innovative and breaking barriers. So I'm very honored that that will be displayed.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, and the colors are just absolutely amazing. So what type of lessons should we kind of, let's say, think about? You know, a lot of times, you know, you think about lessons that you've learned, or, you know, like to pass on. Because you have lots of, I mean, you've done so much.
Sure. You know, so one lesson that I learned is to stay true to yourself. So women will always ask me, you know, what's it like being a black female pilot in the Air Force? And I said, you know, I've never been a white male, so I don't know anything different than who I
love
am.
That. I love
and so it's important to stay true to yourself, you know. When I was flying cargo aircraft, cargo transport, you know, we were a crew, and I would tell them, I'll never be one of the boys, but I'll always be part of the team. And so wanting people to respect the fact that I was a woman flying with them, you know, and not one of the boys, you know, so I didn't want conversations to take another life of their own. And so when you set those expectations up front, then people respect them. They really do. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that it really sits with a lot of people, you know, particularly myself. Be true to yourself, you know. Definitely. My goodness.
And don't be afraid to be a woman. So, you know, I'm a person who, and I got it from both my parents, we could sit at home and watch an AT&T commercial back in the day, and we would all be sobbing because, you know, they were so heartwarming.
Yes.
You know, so I know I have that emotion in me, and I tell people, you know, I will cry, and it's my way of releasing just emotion.
Yes.
Positive, negative, happy, sad. You know, and as much as people would think, well, you know, you have to be stoic and, you know, you can't show emotion. Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
Yes, you can. So just be true to yourself.
Being true to yourself. We're also showing a picture, and it looks like you said it's Sisters of the Sky.
Yes.
What's that about?
So Sisters of the Sky, so very proud. So when I was hired by United Airlines, which is 1990 when I went into the reserve, there were probably a handful of black female pilots, you know, you could name them, and we all knew each other. Now that number has absolutely grown, and it's wonderful. And so we formed an organization, and two wonderful women formed it, called Sisters of the Skies. And what we do is promote aviation to females. And so there's a couple of conferences that are held, little camps that are held a couple of times a year, where girls come in and we teach them all about flying and how to flight plan, and, you know, put them in a simulator so that they can take off and land.
Really?
Yeah, and really inspire them at the youngest ages to think about aviation as a career.
Exactly, at the young age.
Yeah.
Because that's where it starts.
Absolutely, yeah.
You
And being
know?
able to fly a simulator is such a confidence builder. And I think what I've learned so much about, you know, flying is that it really is, because you're taking off on the 747, which was the last plane I flew, 875,000 pounds of aircraft.
Oh my goodness.
That you are lifting off the ground, and then you have to carefully put it back on the ground at another location that could be windy and stormy and everything else. And so, you know, you've got to study hard. You've got to know what you're doing. But it's an incredible confidence builder when you have that skill to do it.
Wow, oh my goodness. General Harris, you have lots of things ahead of you. What's the next step for you?
I'm enjoying spending quality time with my friends. And so that's what I'm enjoying most. So now when my friends say, can you do something? And I can go, yes, I can.
Yes, I
can spend time with
Such as someone texting you, can you come to be on the show?
Exactly. And I said, yes, I absolutely can.
I was like so shocked. Really?
But I tell people, I highly recommend retirement. You don't realize how busy you are in retirement alone, but it's the joys of what you want to do, and that's a blessing to have.
Oh, that's a beautiful thing there. Also, I just want to go back to one other of the pictures. There's another picture of you, and it looks like there was a person from Africa.
Yes.
Tell us about that picture.
So I was just so fortunate through my a session in the Air Force to be able to work with United States Africa Command.
Oh, so that's United States African Command.
Exactly. So
what is that about?
Absolutely. So General Kip Ward hired me into that role to be his assistant. And so and they needed a reservist. I was still a reservist at that time, a reservist. And so at first I was based in Washington, D.C. because it was such a new command. So it is all our military activities within the continent of Africa and how we work with our partners there, which are all the military countries. And what we emphasize is that we operate under civilian control and rule of law. My experience, though, expanded to where I was brought on to work with a pandemic disaster exercise team.
Wow.
So we would take teams of personnel from U.S. Africa Command, from logistics and operations and maintenance and mission support and medical, and we would team up with USAID and other non-governmental agencies, and we would go into specific countries and we would tabletop what would you do in the event of a pandemic disaster.
Wow.
And how would you save people's lives? At the same time, we brought in the civilians also. Sometimes it was the first time the civilians had spoken to their military about how to save the lives of a population in the event of a pandemic disaster. Incredibly rewarding work. And that picture shows us at one of the conferences with our African partners. It was amazing.
You know, General Harris, it's almost like you're peeling back, you know, what we know about the Air Force, and I'm hoping that we are inspiring lots of people out there, not only support, but young people to pick this as a career.
Absolutely. I would love to, especially to see more women. I love what the Air Force has done.
Yes.
You know, it's your ability that matters,
Yeah.
and allows you to thrive in the Air Force.
That's it. What an honor having you on the show.
Thank you so very
General
much, Ingrid.
Harris.
Pleasure.
Thank you for being on the show, General Harris. And our closing inspirational quote this time is from Oprah Winfrey. Doing the best at this moment puts you in the best place for the next moment. Thank you for watching Ingrid's World, and don't forget to friend us on Facebook and follow Ingrid's World VA on Twitter and Instagram. And if you miss an episode, please go to Ingrid's World on YouTube or at ingridsworld.org. Thank you for watching.